Good afternoon. My name is Alex Ramft.
And I'm Justin Cullivan. Welcome to The Grit.
On Saturday, boys cross country won the OCCs for the third straight year. Junior Cohen Allender placed third, and senior Sid Sivakumar got fifth. Senior Sahil Kandari placed sixth.
The girls placed fifth at the OCC. Senior Brooke Chapman placed third and earned first team All-OCC honors for her fourth year in a row. Sophomore Ava Pazak placed 13th and earned second All-OCC honors.
Field hockey won 5-0 over Laurel at home over the weekend. Senior Maggie Gardner had a hat trick, and senior Layla Mijek scored a goal. They also took down Berlin 2-0 on Tuesday in the first round of the state tournament. Freshman Maggie Gardner and senior Sapati Nile each scored a goal for the News last night. They take on Thomas Worthington next.
Over the weekend, girls volleyball lost 3-1 to number 2 ranked team in the state, Anthony Lane, but bounced back with a W against Dublin Jerome 3-1 for the last game of the regular season. Sophomore Bree Bush and senior Macy Gerboth both had 14 kills. Junior Cameron Coomer had 4 aces. Senior Izzy Shulvin had 46 assists.
Girls soccer takes on Pick North tonight at 7 on the road in the first round of the state tournament.
And girls tennis sent Zoe and Aria for doubles at states today. Now let's throw it over to elite talent for the girls wrestling team here at Orange, Lacey Nick.
Hi, I'm Sarah Manette, and I'm here with my teammate Lacey Nick. Lacey, you have Super 32 coming up soon. How have you been preparing for that?
Usually I've just been trying to make 4 to 5 practices a week and then working in conditioning after school or whenever I can do that.
Okay. Now, Lacey, what got you into wrestling?
Initially, my brother started wrestling, and I would come along to the tournaments and practices and just dip my feet in the water a little bit, and then eventually I actually started to compete and really take it seriously.
Okay. Well, Super 32 is a big tournament up in Greensboro, North Carolina, and what's your routine getting ready for a tough match?
I'm thinking about just taking it one match at a time and not focusing it on all outcome based, and just having good body language and just having a good mindset throughout the whole tournament. And hopefully I can achieve what I want there this year. So.
Okay, that's all for our interview. Now I'm going to throw it over to the boys.
Boys football had a phenomenal game last Friday at Upper Arlington. The boys won 28-14 with senior Lucas Fickle scoring all 4 rushing touchdowns for the Nears on Friday. The Nears defense played a strong game with up to 3 sacks and multiple 4th down stops. Now, speaking of football, we got a great slate again. It feels like I say that every single week because every single week it is an elite slate. Let's start off with our high school game. We got the Pioneers taking on Bradley. This is going to be a fun game. If I'm not mistaken, that's Bradley. So this will be fun. 4-4 coming in. Obviously, the Nears 8-0, one of the top teams in the state. Depending on where you look, they can be anywhere from 2 to 6. They should be number 2 in the state. We both agreed on that. So I'm going to take the Nears here. I think they handled UA. They've handled every team they played. I don't really see anyone on the rest of the regular season schedule giving too much trouble.
Yeah, and here I'm just going to keep it short, taking the Nears. I've kind of just expressed how good I think they are this year. Obviously, top team in the state, but I'm going to keep it short and take the Nears.
All right, now we got USC taking on Notre Dame, my future alma mater. I'm excited for that. This game is going to be fun. This is an old rivalry. For some reason, you have South Bend, Indiana versus LA. Very interesting, geographical rivalry, but they are rivals and they do not like each other. USC's coming off of a big win against Michigan where they played physical defense, which is something that they have desperately needed since they've joined the Big Ten. They've struggled with that, the physicality of the game. But they beat up Michigan on both sides of the ball. I do think Notre Dame's the better team. They've had a tough schedule. They've lost, but they have lost both the games against good teams that they played. This offense has really figured out. C.J. Carr, Jeremiah Love, great duo. I think they figured things out. I think Notre Dame runs the rest of the slate. I do think they win in a tight finish against USC.
Yeah, obviously, I'm expecting this to be a phenomenal game. It's been a phenomenal game the past couple of years. Last week, though, it was the first time I feel like recently we've seen USC play Big Ten football compared to how most teams played in the Pac-12 when that was still a conference. I think USC looks amazing. I think they're going to carry their momentum from the win against Michigan. I think Mekhi Lemon has a great game, and I think USC wins.
Then we got LSU versus Vanderbilt taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. This will be a fun game. I think these are two really good defenses, but there is one X factor in this game, and that's Diego Pavia on Vanderbilt. I like Vanderbilt a lot. They played, I know the score is 30-14 against Alabama, but they played a tough game. They were up in that game at points. It's just they couldn't score in that second half, and Alabama's defense really converged on them, which makes me think if Alabama's defense was able to hold Vanderbilt to only 14, I don't even know what LSU's defense is going to do. That defense is elite, but I do have worries about the offense. This is going to be a low-scoring slugfest, in my opinion. I do think LSU edges out the win. I just have more trust in the coaching staff with Brian Kelly, a little bit more experience. I know he's not the greatest coach, but he has won some big games. And I trust Garrett Nussmeier to finally break through. I keep waiting for him to. He was my Heisman pick coming into this year. He hasn't really shown out that I thought he would, but I do think finally LSU gets over that hump and gets a big win.
Yeah, and this is a very odd game. Usually I would take Vanderbilt at home. I love Vanderbilt, but I just can't see myself doing that after last week. They just didn't put up the numbers that most people thought they would against Alabama, especially with their continued success coming into this year. So I think the Tigers are going to take them down in Nashville.
Then we got Ole Miss taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously, this was a fun game last year. Tons of sacks for Ole Miss's defensive line. It was like 10 or something crazy like that. And Ole Miss dominated Georgia. But now they got to go to Athens to play Georgia. I honestly have not been too impressed with either of these teams, especially with Ole Miss and their rough game against Washington State. I do really like their quarterback that they got, Chamberlain. I think that's how you say his name. Like him a lot. D2 national championship champion. I do not think Ole Miss gets this win, though. I think Georgia's going to beat them up at home. I think it's going to be a tough environment for them to play in. I think it will be just enough, the physicality will be just enough to get them over the hump against Ole Miss, who struggled a lot against Washington State.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here taking Georgia. Kirby Smart knows how to win the big games. Ole Miss, I just don't love their resume up to this point this year. Georgia has that loss on their schedule, but they've still looked pretty good, so I'm going to take the Bulldogs.
And then probably the biggest game of the weekend, in my opinion, will be the best game of the weekend. In Tuscaloosa, we got Tennessee, the Volunteers, taking on the Crimson Tide, and this game last year was elite. I remember watching it in Chick-fil-A, and I remember jumping up when Tennessee picked the ball off because I've hate watched Alabama my whole life with how many national championships they've won. It was electric. But this is a different quarterback with Ty Simpson compared to Jalen Milroe. This guy might be the Heisman frontrunner, especially with Dante Moore and his mediocre performance against Indiana last week. I don't think Tennessee's got it. Well, I watched against Georgia. They struggled down the stretch. They struggled in the clutch. They struggled with turnovers. All things that they're going to need to win when they're playing this Alabama team who is very efficient on offense. They're finally learning how to run the football, and they have one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. So give me Alabama.
Yeah, and Ty Simpson is, as of now, my Heisman candidate. I was a big John Mateer guy earlier in the season, but he has not played the greatest recently, so I do have Ty Simpson as my Heisman favorite. This has been an amazing game the past couple years. Tennessee, obviously when Alabama played in Tennessee, I believe it was 2 years ago, the goalposts got thrown into the river. Tennessee with one of their biggest wins in program history against Alabama. I think they get it done again. I think they're going to take down the Crimson Tide. I don't love this Alabama team, even though I do love Ty Simpson. I just think some of the struggles they've showed this year are just like, I think this is the game their struggles break through and actually cause them to lose a game by a lot more than most people think. So I'm going to take the Volunteers.
And finally, one of the most fun rivalries that a lot of people don't know about, nicknamed the Holy War. In Salt Lake City, BYU, the Brigham Young University, taking on the Utah Utes. Both these colleges are like down the street from each other. This one's going to be fun. This might be the most ferocious rivalry that out of all of these games, and nobody even knows about unless you live out there. With that being said, BYU has played absolutely nobody to this point. They're number 15 in the nation off of winning the games, which is obviously part of the game. You beat who you can and who's on your schedule. You can't change it after the fact. But Utah, that O-line outside the Texas Tech game has been elite. Devon Dampier has been really good. I'm going to take Utah here. They're my Big 12 runner-ups, I think. I think they're going to get a rematch against Texas Tech at the end of the season. I think they're going to roll over BYU here. Yeah, I'm also going to take Utah. Even though he hasn't really been putting up the stats, Devon Dampier looks really solid. Obviously, they have that one loss in their schedule, but they had a good win last week against Arizona State that I actually do like a lot.
So I'm going to take the Utes over the Cougars in BYU in one of the best named rivalries in college sports, the Holy War. So yeah, give me the Utah Utes. That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of The Grit. I'm Alex Ramft.
And I'm Joseph Colvin. Make sure to support your Nears in action this week. And as always, roll Nears.